Welcome to the gold grading. This is where we're going to look at new cards in Magic the Gathering. We're going to take cards from the current set and assess them in 5 criteria, ranking 1 to 5. We're going to rank the ability of the card, what it does and when it does, flexibility, what situations we could see this being useful and when, the top deck, how we feel if we top deck this card late in the game with no other cards, how we feel about it being in our opening hand, and finally we'll give it a ranking on the Bring to Light scale. The Bring to Light scale is 1 to 5. 1 is never not hittable. 2 is it's our last resort. 3, it's a win more card. If we're already winning the game or we already have something set up, we could just throw it in. 4 is a signature / golden bullet, basically like a supreme against a monocolored deck, something that we could pull out to give us an edge. And 5 is first call rivals Niv. Once we have a grade in all 5 of those categories, we'll take an average and assign it a grade based on the score it gets. So 1 will be an F to 5, which will be an A. That's it. Let's get into some new cards. Welcome to the golden grade for Secrets of Strixhaven, and I'm going to start off by saying this set has a huge golden grade. This is a 2-color set, so there are plenty of treasures for Niv to Light players. I'm looking at this from the primary, just what we might add to a deck in Pioneer. Now, I'm going to start with a couple of disclaimers. 1, I'm not putting any of the Elder Dragons in here. They are fun things to experiment with. I don't know if they'll have a place in a competitive Niv Light list, or someone that I might try. The other one I want to do is I've disclaimer, I'm not including any of the charms here. The charms are all great and good inclusions for most Niv to Light decks, depending on your build, and I think that there might even be some play. My big one, just off the top of my head, is Witherbloom Command. I would really like to see play. That being said, we should just move into our first one here. We have the Planeswalker, multicolored Planeswalker of the set, Professor Dillian Fay. 2 black and a green for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker with 4 abilities. So let's start with that. Abilities, I gave him a 4.5 out of 5. I really like this because it covers all things. His 0 is draw a card and we lose a life. His -3 is removal, and his +2 is life gain. So ideally, he stabilizes us in most situations. If we need to get a bit more life against an aggro deck, it's good. If we have a creature that has to die, it's good. And if we want to draw, we can do that. So that also leads into his flexibility being a 4.25. Also, he has a potential own win condition, because if we plus him once and then get the emblem, each additional +3 is then damage to the opponent. So that's very worth considering. Top deck potential. If we top deck this guy in a board stall with the opponent where we have nothing else, 100% he's a 5 out of 5. He is, if the board is empty, he is a you must answer this guy, because we could plus him if our opponent is empty-handed and threaten an emblem, which means he has to die, or we could 0 and just keep getting card advantage. So there's 2 things that must be answered. Conversely though, being a 4-mana Planeswalker, he is a 1.75 in the opening hand. He's not absolutely terrible, but there are certainly things we'd want to see. We want him to show up a couple of draws in, I think, after we've stabilized the board. And finally, in his Bring to Light scale, he's a 1. Obviously, the 1 means you cannot hit it, or you will never choose this. Just a bit more explanation on the Bring to Light scale. 1 is you'll never hit it. 5 is you'll probably be choosing it and potentially over Niv Mizzet. And we have different values in between. So overall, we gave him a grade of a C. He averaged out to about a C, which is very good, remember, considering he has literally 0 in the Bring to Light scale. The 4 slot is pretty contested right now. I like the Cavero and the Toph, but I could see him being run as an inevitability or something to try out. Now we'll move into Silver Quills, and we have Conjugator Duelist, whatever. White, black for 4/3 core Warlock with whenever this creature enters, draw a card, each player loses 1 life, and it has Repartee. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature, exile up to 1 target creature, return it to the battlefield under its opponent's control. So, abilities, I've given it 3 out of 5. These abilities are pretty good. Its ETB immediately replaces itself, draws a card. If we're low on life though, it's not something we want. It has a body, which is also pretty good for flexibility. The big thing that sold me on this was actually after spoiler season when I realized that repartee doesn't say a creature you control. So all our targeted spot removal would trigger the repartee here, giving us potentially some good options. Obviously, flickering this to draw another card is good. Flickering a Niv-Mizzet is absolutely insane. Flickering a Yorion to blink out our board and save it from a board wipe is also insane. However, I only gave it 3 out of 5 for that and flexibility of a 2.5 because while it does have a solid ETB and can be used as a beat stick, it doesn't do anything on its own. You need additional instants and sorceries to make it work, which also coincidentally why it's a 2.5 out of 5 in the top deck. If we draw this with no other cards in our hand, yes, it replaces itself, which is pretty good, but if we don't draw additional spells, if we like hit a land after we draw it, it's just a 4/3 at that point, which is still good but not better. Also, I've put it in the opening hand of a 1.75 because I would not want to see this in the opening hand. As a 5-color deck, seeing this mana cost early in the game would terrify me. Trying to place a Healy sword with Gear Hulks has proven insanely hard with the double 4 mana pip requirement. So yeah, not the greatest. And a Bring to Light scale, we gave it a 2 out of 5. 2 on the Bring to Light scale is a last resort. You are getting this if something went wrong. So basically, if someone has extracted the Niv-Mizzets out of our deck, this is something we might consider in certain scenarios, but something has gone wrong if you're getting it, basically. Right, into Prismari, and I chose here Sanar, Unfinished Genius. Blue and red for a 0/4 goblin, sorcerer that enters prepared and can tap to make a treasure if we've cast into a sorcery spell this turn. And his prepared spell is Wild Idea, which is a 5-mana sorcery that's let us tutor an instant or sorcery to our hand and then shuffle. So there's a cycle of these. One of each of the students has these abilities where they're creatures that can gain spells, basically. They can charge up a spell by becoming prepared. So for Senna, I gave him a 3 out of 5 for his abilities. I put him slightly above curve. He is a basically a creature that is a chump blocker. 4 toughness, we've said many times, is very good. And he also can create us additional mana. Ideally, obviously, we are a very heavy spell deck, Niv to Light. So ideally, every turn, if we've cast a spell to, say, kill something on our opponent's board or establish our board, we can tap him to bank additional mana. And also, the Wild Idea basically just to me reads, hey, use this to tutor a Bring to Light for later. Flexibility, I gave him a 3.25, so he can serve as a chump blocker, a situational mana dork, and a tutor. So, very good. Bit overcosted in a tutor, but it has to be that expensive, I understand why. And that's where he goes there. Top deck, 4 out of 5. He's not the perfect thing you want to top deck. I mean, if I top deck him and I have 7 mana, I'm sorted for my next turn. Because what I can do is play him and then immediately use his ability to tutor the next Bring to Light or whatever I need to my hand. So, you know, he's a pretty good scale there. Opening hand, he's a 3.5. He's a 2 mana dork, essentially, situationally. And a 0/4 as a blocker is very good in the current very aggressive format, so pretty good there. And finally, on the Bring to Light scale, he is a 1. We will never get him. Because, here's the deal, yes, he has a tutor to get a Bring to Light, but if we are casting a Bring to Light, why would we get a creature that's best thing it can do for us is tutor another Bring to Light? So again, D+ here because he's not high on the Bring to Light scale, but a very good consideration that I think I'll try out, maybe 1 or 2 of in the deck. Being a legendary also does hold him back. Mind into Matter, the Quandric spell. Now, green-blue spells are very hard to come by in our decks because obviously we run a full playset of Bring to Light. But this was one which intrigued me. So, for blue, green, and X, we get a sorcery that says draw X cards and we may put a permanent card of mana value X or less from our hand onto the battlefield. So, I gave it a 2.5 in abilities because essentially what this reads as is 2 mana, put a land into play. Or anything else potentially is higher and higher scales and scales, draws you more cards, drops something into play, proportionate to what you put into the X. That's why I put flexibility here of 3.5. The flexibility is basically it puts opponent into play and can, ramp you as you go. However, I didn't put it higher than 3.5 because basically it is dependent on what you draw. Now, it could have insane flexibility because we could draw a Niv-Mizzet, put that into play, and that'd be great. We could draw a Sanar, we could draw any of the other creatures we've talked about here, or Planeswalkers, drop them in and go. Problem is, obviously, it's situational. So flexibility knocks it down to 3.5. Top deck, 4 out of 5 here. Again, I would prefer to draw a Bring to Light, but if I'm late game with, say, 7 or 8 mana and I draw this, I will happily use a big X draw spell to try and draw a permanent into the battlefield, and so on and so forth. Opening hand, 1.75. It could serve as a way to drop an additional land in to ramp us, but if I was honest, if I was looking for that effect, I would probably play Growth Spiral. And finally, Bring to Light scale of a 1. Again, it's an X spell. Bring to Light scale is very low here, but what these cards primarily are things that we could just essentially grab, not necessarily, you know, one-ofs in the deck to try out. And finally, the last card I want to talk about here is Practiced Scrollsmith. So this mana cost, okay, red, white, and a red-white hybrid for a 3/2 Dwarf Cleric with First Strike. When it enters, exile target non-creature, non-land card from your graveyard. Until your next turn, you may cast that card. So, for purpose of things here, I gave its abilities a 4, because it reads a bit awkward because we can cast permanents like sagas, enchantments, artifacts, but essentially this is a Snapcaster Mage that gives us an additional turn to cast a spell, but also can give us the flexibility of casting artifacts or artifacts or enchantments, which is pretty fun, so I kept that. Flexibility, I put this as a 3.75 because it is essentially whatever spell we've already cast in the game. Now, I gave it a bit higher because it's also a creature, it's a first striker, which is pretty good, and its ETB is solid, and I like that it doesn't immediately require. One of the things with, for example, Snapcaster Mages, if you wanted to Snapcast a mana leak, you needed 4 mana. What you can do with Practice Scrollsmith is play it for free and then bank next turn's spell before you have to consider it. Top deck, 4.25 here. I gave it very high here because if I've gone to the late game of the deck and I have nothing else left and I'm top decking, I will have cards in my graveyard. I will have instants of sorceries, I will have potential other tutors, I will have Bring to Lights maybe. This card essentially says to me, top decked this, played it for free, exiled a Bring to Light, and then until my next turn I can get it, which to me is absolutely insane. Conversely as well, in the opening hand I gave it a 2.25. I wouldn't be ashamed to see this in the opening hand. A 3/2 First Strike is a very good stat line to protect you, and flashing back, for example, say we're against an aggro deck and we go turn 2 Lightning Helix, turn 3 play this guy, exile the Lightning Helix to cast on the next turn to stabilize and keep us alive, which is there pretty good. And finally, Bring to Light scale, I gave this a 2.5. I gave it a 2.5 because it is something I could see myself getting. Now obviously, there's a very cute interaction where you could Bring to Light, grab this and exile the Bring to Light to do it again. I don't know why you would do that. It's similar to what you can do with Niv-Mizzet Supreme, but one of the big things I would do with this is, say we're up against a highly aggressive token or aggro deck, and we've used a board wipe, say we've used our one Supreme Verdict, but they've established another board state that requires another board wipe, so Practiced Scrollsmith, going back, grabbing it, exiling the Supreme Verdict to cast next turn to try and stabilize. It could also just be a great deterrent. For example, if we play this and the opponent is trying to go wide, will inevitably buy us a turn because they'll go, oh, they're going to board wipe next turn, we're not going to deploy anything else. So with that in mind, I gave this a C. This is something I am going to try. I think I might swap out the Joshuas for this, just to see how it goes, because while I do enjoy the Joshua, I found him less and less effective, and I think this stat line is probably a little bit better. Joshua's 4 toughness though is significantly stronger, but it's definitely something I want to consider. But anyway, those are my 5 cute choices for Strixhaven. I will be playing a ton of Strixhaven in the coming weeks. I'll be testing out a bunch of other cards. The Friday slot will probably have some cute gameplay with different interactions and see how things go from there. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of these cards in a Live to Light deck.